jacked up review show. It's a jacked up review show. Jacked up review show. It's the jacked up review show.
Join us as we cover many an insane movie and numerous cult TV phenomenons. Are you ready to get jacked up? Are you with us? Then listen on.
Listener discretion is advised. It's a jacked up review show. It's a jacked up review show. Jacked up review show. It's a jacked up review show. It's a jacked up review show. Jacked up review show.
And we circle around. I got 50 movies here. We're gonna just kind of go through the works, and I guarantee you, just when you recognize the movie, just jump right on in. And I'll just introduce us to how we just all understood that this actor was more than what he seemed on paper. So, JJ, since you're the surprise guest, I'll let you join in.
Where did I first see him? I'm trying to think. It was in Coming to America.
Okay, yeah, no, that
He played the guy who was trying to rob the McDowells, and then I watched him. It kind of like he grew up. He like his career started to take flight, because I remember I saw him in. I keep thinking it was really good movie to watch. And then I saw him in. I'm trying to think the other one I saw him in that. And he started to grow. But I think the one thing I loved him in was Pulp Fiction.
right. So
Of course.
you saw basically the essential, just like the starter kit, and it just worked your way up from there. And it is kind of funny how both those roles kind of did leave an impression, because Pulp Fiction was definitely the one where everyone just instantly could quote multiple lines from his character. He was an atypical hitman with a heart of gold, with this Godfather connection to Travolta's, Vincent. And Coming to America was basically a featured, extra role that grew into an extended comedy skit in that giant movie.
And then School Days too. School Days was just phenomenal. I saw that. I was like, who's this guy who's like the real tough ass?
Going off of Giancarlo Esposito and Lawrence Fishburne,
And you got Lawrence. Yeah, you got Lawrence Fishburne. I think there should be a movie with Lawrence Fishburne and Samuel L. Jackson where they play cops, but the characters should be like interchanging. You know what I mean? Because Lawrence Fishburne play a badass, and Samuel L. Jackson play a badass. So it's like two guys are really good, But
right, and just an
amazing
hitman who doesn't even seem vulnerable, just seems just freaky and cool one minute. You just never know what he's gonna do or say next. Okay, David, I'm hearing you breathe every single minute.
Oh shit, I'm sorry. Microphone so close to your mouth there.
Okay. Okay. I know. I want you to interact, but just whatever reason, I hear every single.
Yeah, I do too.
So let's. This is gonna be hell. I'll let David go ahead and just jump in. I didn't mean to.
Okay.
No, it's okay. I'll keep it muted when I'm not talking. I think Goodfellas is the first thing I remember noticing him in.
Really?
And then when you
okay.
and then when you go back and realize he was in these other movies, you go, oh yeah, I remember him in that. But I think Goodfellas is, but mainly because of because of the brutality of his killing in that movie. You know, he's like just putting his pants on and they shoot him in the back of the head. Based on a real, he was based on a real person. That whole movie, a lot of it's based on a true story. That so his character was based on a real guy. So that's the first thing I think that he stood out for me in. And then then when I went back, I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. He was in School Days and the other
The Right Thing.
Yeah, the other Spike Lee movies. And he was in Sea of Love and stuff before that. But yeah, I'd have to say Goodfellas, which I just watched the other day again. It's one of those movies where once you start watching it, you can't stop. Even if you catch it like an hour in, you're like, oh, I'm watching the rest of this.
What's funny is I don't, we've all varied on different Scorsese movies because he's done, some controversial stuff, some other ones where you're like, it's just a bunch of very, awesome actors playing very one-dimensional, biographies. But Goodfellas is like the only one that I think everyone can universally just agree on because it really did change how biographies were done, crime movies were done from that point in day, and just the music. Nowadays everyone's too busy ripping off Scorsese or Tarantino, but then it got even to where it's like now you see people incorporate music, but it really doesn't even have anything to do with the scene. They're just doing it just because they forgot the intent, which was, you listen very carefully, all the Scorsese music, all the Rolling Stones music has something to do with the murder scenes and all that, and the mood that everyone's feeling in the room. And like you say, yeah, Jackson's character is a total fall guy, and you just don't see it coming. And
he's a little bit of a dipshit. He like fell asleep and forgot to get rid of the one car or something. He's kind of a and then they kill him, and he's like, and I forgot which. He's like, oh, what are you doing? Take the coffee, because they're like making coffee, and they get ready to leave after they shoot him in the one. I think Joe Pesci said the other thing, no, take the coffee. It's kind of like they don't even give a shit. They just killed it. They just killed this guy in cold blood. Now they're just worried about. He's just worried about the coffee.
Right. I forget which one it was that I saw him in. I think it was George Lopez was doing an AFI tribute to him, and they took that murder scene, and he's like, "Oh, you fucking died!" just flat out just made fun of it. It was like, you didn't just get shot, you got shot in the back of the head. Why the hell did you let your cool down, dude? You let your guard down, you idiot.
Yeah, because I think the implication was he wasn't all that bright.
Right. And they chronicle him in some other versions of that, but I mean, Scorsese made a good characteristic decision to just show very less of him and just kind of make us feel sorry for his stupid ass and just show that
he's what they call he was the useful idiot. He's a
useful idiot. He knew how to steal the car. He didn't know where to park it. They had to clean up his mess, and just at that point, he was disposable. It's just so funny because you see him earlier in the bar. He's partying with the rest of them, and, with his soon-to-be widowed wife, and it's just
right. He thinks everything's great. Everything's going to be great.
I like these guys. They're nice to me.
But that's what happened to the real guy whose name I don't know. But he was supposed to get rid of the van they used in the robbery.
Yeah, loaded.
Was it? And he got loaded and he forgot. And so the cops found the van before he was able to get rid of it the next day. So they had to kill him. Oh, well.
Right. It just shows you it's like.
That is a harsh job evaluation right there.
Right. You're only as good as your job title.
I mean, if I get a shitty eval at work, they just tell me to do better.
Right, instead of, by the way, we're just gonna why don't you do a chore for us here and get the silencer.
Yeah.
Daniel, how did you come across Mr. Mofo Jackson?
Probably my earliest memory with him would have to be Jurassic Park.
Okay, perfect.
Oh.
Yeah, when he was Mr. Arnold. But
hold on to your butt.
Hold on to your butts, unless you're Nia Jax. But anyway.
Yep.
But actually, I also didn't realize it till later. I saw him all the time on TV in Loaded Weapon 1.
Oh, yes. Nice. And see, that was good timing there, too, because, I mean, he really, just like how Spielberg would, produce 2 movies a year and direct 2 movies a year, Jackson was, starring in, 3 to 5 movies a year, just like Ernie Hudson, and just staying relevant. He knew how to. Yeah, I grew up just again, like you say, seeing him in a good chunk of the blockbusters because you watch TNT or USA, every week, and there's bound to be some movie he's in that he's featured in, and he was definitely one of those actors. I just liked his hip energy. He'd be serious in one movie, and then he'd be all over the top, a jokester in the next movie. Much like Danny Trejo and all these other guys, you never.
Mm-hmm.
He might not win awards, but he might as well because he's just a general likable.
Come to think of it, how was Samuel L. Jackson not in Con Air?
Right?
I was surprised by that too.
Being Rames and MC Gainey are in it, but he's not in it.
Yeah, that's a good point.
It is a surprising one, and there's definitely plenty of other roles. I wish he would just stop doing these Avenger movies and just appear in the Expendables already. He should be like the new CIA mentor.
I would love for that.
It's just like, well, seriously, hold on to your butts, motherfucker. just come right on in and just hold up his finger and just point, and just everything instantly blows up. Just do his maniacal laugh. That's all I need. So aside from just kind of being in multiple different franchises and everything, Jonathan, how did you come across him and just say, wow, this is one of my favorite actors. I want to check out all his other earlier and later work.
Well, like somebody mentioned before, my introduction was actually Jurassic Park as well. And later on, in fact, the first one I saw in the lead with him was actually my favorite of his, The Long Kiss Goodnight.
He's good enough to be on your profile picture. The Hitman's Bodyguard's up there.
Oh yeah, that was intentional, by the way.
I love The Long Kiss. I was hoping we were going to talk about The Long Kiss Goodnight. I love that.
We will. We definitely.
Oh yeah.
Will. I mean, and I think, kind of like with Schwarzenegger, as for lack of a better comparison, he is one of those guys. I have to reevaluate a movie because he's now in it. It's no longer just a movie. It's a Jackson movie. So
yep.
He can do action. He can do crime. He's been in some sci-fi and horror and mystery movies. He really cannot do any wrong at this point. I mean,
nope.
He's been in some stinkers, yes, but never to the point where you're like, where any of us would dare say he was the worst part of the movie. If he's in a movie, you don't even really get a sense that he doesn't care. You know that he, much like Steve Buscemi, does not ever turn a role down because he knows that he respects both his brand, but he also knows it's a business. And so, if anything, he at least asks, hey, he's been on the record saying, I don't ask for, much, just a decent trailer. I just want you to give me a good role, as opposed to just a movie where I literally just stood there and did absolutely nothing. And I think that's true too. I can't think of a movie, maybe save for some of the Avengers where he was just a cameo. I can't think of one where you just see him and you're like, he did nothing. I can't think of that. If anything, he has at least one speech or has an outrageous fight scene or just some catchy one-liner where you're like, well, that at least made this 1 out of 5 star movie at least a 1.5, just because he said something. So I'll get right into it. In no particular order, have any of us seen the part Vietnam and Gulf War type movie, part courtroom thriller, Rules of Engagement?
I've seen it.
Not all the way through.
All right, by William Friedkin of The Exorcist and French Connection fame. He decided to tackle another movie. Is like, when do you just, prosecute someone for a bunch of war crimes and, contrarian viewpoints, and when do you just say, hey, blame the mission, don't blame the soldier? And I've seen a lot of people be divided on this and other people find this. I think this is at least just kind of an interesting one because, again, just like 12 Angry Men, no one can agree on the viewpoint of it. Jackson has been in many movies with Tommy Lee Jones, and this is one of them. He gets to act off perfectly against him. Tommy Lee Jones is assigned to him as, his JAG type, lawyer who's like, well, regardless of what he did, he saved my life in Vietnam when both my legs got shot out. So, at this point, I gotta just save face in this, because this was a failed, Saban ambassador, and a bunch of people got slaughtered, and it happened under his command. And it's an interesting kind of just perspective of it all, because regardless of the viewpoint, you're kind of left in the gray, and you just have to just say, well, he was doing his job, but at the same time it could have been averted, and at the same time, was there any real game plan that would have the chopper almost got brought down by this rioting crowd? What would have happened anyway? It's just but I think it's by this point Jackson's already been in a bunch of legal thrillers, and so when he was in this was just really kind of he'd already done Soldier Rules and already done legal thrillers, so to see him in this one was kind of icing on the cake, where he just got to kind of show be a stuck-up asshole at the beginning who goes, shoot the motherfuckers, make them pay, and then here he is just kind of holding back tears saying, you don't get it, having the jarhead mentality. And I think that leads me on to A Time to Kill, which I think we can all quote on here. Yes, they deserve to die, and I hope they burn in hell.
Yeah.
Great movie.
Great book, great movie. And this, I think everyone should watch this once a year, given, how white supremacy has only gotten worse in the last 10 years. Just much like 12 Angry Men and all those other great legal movies that dominated the 80s and 90s, just a phenomenal all-star cast, Sandra Bullock and McConaughey when they were very young. Then you got, established character actors like Doug Hutchison and Kiefer Sutherland as, the KKK members. Kurtwood Smith is like a crooked judge who's also like a KKK guy by night, and
Patrick McGowan's in that too, right?
Say again.
I keep thinking Patrick McGowan is in that.
I would not be surprised. I know Donald Sutherland is, and Ashley Judd is there as the guy who's like, our house almost burned down by these Klan members, hubby, maybe you should drop the case, and it just shows you just what people do in a time of fear. And haven't seen Joel Schumacher's recent episode of the directors. It was kind of cool just seeing how he brought it. He did some very gritty movies, but I think he got people to trust him, and just he always kind of lit them in the most moody lighting. And I think that's why this movie works so well. You feel the mood circulating through everybody, all the sweat, everything, just beautiful people caught in just, it's basically an R-rated Law and Order episode, but it's something more too, and people like to even talk about now whether, he would have even gotten off in the first place. Was like, well, I think you're just missing the point of the movie. You're just showing there is black, white, there is no limit to what people will go to avenge, a wrongful death or rape of a loved one. It's just like, in this case, his daughter didn't die, but she might as well, because she got assaulted by a KKK member who, and just having him say that, signature line, I think really made the movie just even so much more just not only unprecedented, but also just absolutely surprising. He's been on Good Courtroom Behavior, and at this point he's just like, you know what? You're coming at me. I'm just going to say it. Yeah, they deserve to die. You want to make me look like an animal? Yeah, there you got it. What would you do? I think this movie just gels as a whole, just because aside from being a thinking man's mystery, it's also just, everybody's just totally well characterized. And I mean, anyone else who wants to jump in on it before we move on to the next one, please.
I think you said it.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah. I was gonna say.
Alrighty.
Which said exactly.
Well, I'm gonna just mention his role as Mace Windu.
Yeah, of course.
A lot of people
Absolutely.
thought he was miscast. Yeah, honestly, I thought that was actually you can get rid of the awful casting of Anakin and all that, but don't. I see nothing wrong with his Mace Windu portrayal. I thought he was a badass Jedi growing up, along with Liam Neeson's Qui-Gon.
Well,
I love that he like requested his own specific color
Right,
of
it
lightsaber,
must
and
be
they
pink,
gave it to him
purple.
because he's fucking Samuel L. Jackson. So of course you're gonna give him what he wants.
Yeah,
supposedly-
Lucas had wanted to work with him for multiple years, and he just never got the chance. And it's funny because earlier action figures had his characters lights, and even video game portrayals had his
Blue.
lightsabers blue. And I'm like, what?
Well, the thing I love is when he's like the second, like the first movie, he's not really in it that much. He's kind of like part of the council, right?
Yeah,
The second
Yeah.
Attack of the Clones, when you just see him walking up, and he takes the lightsaber and he flicks it on right under Christopher Lee's chin, and he goes, "This party's
this
over."
party's over. It made the trailer. It killed. It was, yeah. It
And then he's the guy that kills Jango Fett. And then not only that, but
participates in the arena. And
Yeah.
says, "This has been a mistake. We're outnumbered." You know, it's
Yeah.
like, good God, this is
Mhm.
becoming a Ben-Hur type epic with lasers and all that shit.
but the thing I loved is when he fought who was it? He fought like he was
the Emperor,
fighting,
yeah.
he was fighting Palpatine, and like everybody goes down around him, and he's just like, "All right, I'm gonna show you what I can do." And you watch him, and you're like, "Wow, this they
This
when
guy
they
can
do-
go.
Yeah, this guy can
Right.
go." But the thing that they expanded more on his characters in the Clone Wars, the cartoon.
He's beating droids senseless with just his fists because he's, a
Yeah.
horse wielder. And
It's like that. It's like he's doing kung fu. It's like, which would foreshadow him doing a lot of other action roles. But it was like, I remember they said Samuel Jackson's going to be in Star Wars. I'm like, are they going to be like? Is he going to say like how many times is he going to say like MFer in the Star Wars movie?
yeah, he had been considered for so many other roles, and I think he would have been perfect in them. It was also one of those where he, again, you don't know what he's gonna say. Is he gonna be nice, or is it gonna be, like Pacino or De Niro, where he says about 500 F-bombs? But it was definitely one of those where, by this point he had a different type of geekdom. He's no longer restricted to just Spike Lee and Tarantino and
Yeah.
other kinds of movies. Is like I'm really even surprised that people like Joel Silver and Jerry Bruckheimer didn't use him more. It's that kind of thing. So more or less, I think you guys basically said it. Is he got some reasonable fights and just philosophy to share, and that just kind of made it all the more better. And so I'm gonna move it on to the other geek icon we were just gonna mention, Long Kiss Goodnight.
Actually, you haven't seen that one.
That's a duck, not a dick.
Yep.
Oh God,
God, there's so many quotes in there.
lots of
Yeah,
quotes.
and they're all his.
Yep.
Oh, he came up with them. Jeez.
Well, I mean, they're lines that he says. I don't know if he came up with them, but he gets he gets the best lines. He gets the best lines in that
I
movie.
wrote them, so.
Yeah, there you go. I have issues with the movie, but there's no denying the action and the lines are they're dynamite because they're by Shane Black, who had basically been instructed is like, you will do a Lethal Weapon type movie, and once again, like Die Hard, it's gonna be set at Christmas.
And I love his character because he's really basically a kind of a schlub, and his story arc takes him at the very end. He says, just one time, do something right, and he does it, and he finally gets his redemption. I love that.
The opening quote.
And that's why
He says at the beginning, also made it onto his soundboard that used to be on Realm of Darkness, and that was a side use for celebrity prank calls. And the way he says it is almost exactly how he says, fat man, this ain't none of your goddamn business in fiction. Oh God.
What does he say when they see the girl jogging on the side of the road? He says, "Shit, you got time to comb your hair."
It's almost the way he says that is almost like Chris talking.
I love that. I love that line.
Oh my god.
Mhm.
Oh, Jackson can't do any wrong.
Oh yeah.
This used to be a favorite on TBS as well. They would air it like it'd be the midnight movie. Oh god. And so on to another role, which he not only played twice, but even during promotion of the initial movie, portrayed the character at a WWE event. It is none other than John Shaft the Third.
Oh,
I
yeah.
remember that.
Yeah.
Where Richard Roundtree plays both his uncle and
And
his dad.
Well, they retconned it in the last Shaft movie.
And see, I thought that was clever because it was by Kenya Barris, who's best known as the creator of the Blackish TV franchise and is now doing the Coming to America sequel. I'm like,
That turned out great.
well, I mean, it wasn't for everybody, but I thought it did have some fun Expendables type moments where they're just flat out, it's like, what are them hipsters and millennials doing nowadays? But
The best part of that is to watch him and Roundtree, who's like the original, from the first Shaft series, and then he comes along, and then it's like the son is now like this like tech guy, but like the thing I loved about him doing Shaft was that it was a callback to his it was a callback to that original movie.
They did do a lot of that. They even literally take the exact kind of Motown soundtrack that would have totally been playing those kinds of
It was
movies.
a tribute.
Yeah,
Total
Oh, yeah.
homage. Suck it,
And-
Abrams. You got nothing. You got nothing.
and I didn't realize it was the fifth movie. In there, because I always thought
Shaft Returns, Shaft in Africa, then the 2000 movie, and then this one. So yeah, there's even a TV show. But
I still think the reason when Shepard just called Son of Shaft instead of just Shaft.
yeah, I'm gonna definitely blame the marketing on that because I mean John Davis, you got the producer of the Predator franchise, who's done even some other movies with Eddie Murphy and Jackson, and I was like, yeah, I think you can just call it "This Ain't Your Dad's Shaft" or something like that. I mean, you could have, done something. Is like Shaft and Son would have been a lame title, but I'm sure you could have just done something like
The New Shaft, or
"It's All Shaft in the Family" or something.
Yeah.
Some parody of the whole thing. I guess you could have had someone looking like Archie Bunker in the background who he caps at the beginning. I don't know.
Shafts on our porch. Will you hold it there, Edith?
Shaft in the Hood. I don't know. Yeah. I'm going to lead us on to another Michael Crichton adaptation, Spear. Anyone ever see this one?
No.
Spear. No, I
Yeah,
can't say I have.
I'm one of the ones that is not in this movie.
Nope.
It's one of those. It's pretty true to the book.
I'm not a fan, so
Yeah, and I think I like it, just because Livingston approached it by having elements of horror, mystery, and psychological action. And yeah, if you want to see them do kind of a lighter Alien Abyss type, movie, Leviathan, it's kind of like that. And some of the actors kind of are still just in their other roles that they were already in around the same time, but Jackson is definitely good here because he hadn't really done as many of these sci-fi horror movies still by that point, and in this one his character in the book is already a key person. He's the first person who gets taken advantage of by the squid's mind control, and in this one you never really see the creature, and the movie does a good job of making use of both its lesser budget. It was by Barry Levinston, and other people who were used to doing this kind of thing, and just being an intelligent, just disaster movie. And it's definitely a Crichton adapted work I would recommend, just because fans of the book won't complain, and people who just want a straightforward 90-minute movie won't be bored with it either and just be laughing at the screen unintentionally. We've already mentioned fiction, so let's go on to another Tarantino role, True Romance.
Oh Lord.
As the
Yeah,
guy who
very
gets shotgun
fun.
blasted by Gary Oldman. And kind of like Goodfellas, he's not a good person, and yet you kind of just feel sorry for his sorry ass because he's the messenger.
Yeah.
Technically, it's don't shoot the messenger. Whammo. Yeah. Just
One
the
thing
way-
about Sam Jackson is that so many movies where his character dies, he always makes it mean something.
right, his posture in this is really good. Anyone else would have just kind of been looking there, kind of confused, saying, "Is that what you need? Is that enough?" And here, Jackson knows what the scene needs. He's clearly consulted with everyone and ready to stand his own against, dreadlock, psycho drug addicted dealer, Gary Oldman.
Drexel.
Drexel.
One of Oldman's best roles, I think.
And I don't think anyone will deny that. I mean, and everybody basically is just dynamite performance-wise, and so Jackson is basically a featured cameo, but he makes it mean something by just again he's here to do business and give a warning, and Drexel is not taking too kind to his warning. And says, "Hey, shit, man, you on my property? You're not leaving here alive." And it's almost like something you would detect. I wasn't surprised when Tarantino took on Jackie Brown, which we'll get to later. In fact, we can talk about now. I mean, because True Romance totally has elements of, a Elmore Leonard movie, so it makes sense that they would both tackle a work like that and the line from Jackie Brown is definitely one of those that's often repeated on video game forums when you positively absolutely got to kill every last mofo. AK-47s, baby. I think he elevates this movie for sure. It took me a while to like this movie, but I just love how he gets to play off of Chris Tucker and other, De Niro. He's doing business with just the most petty people on the planet. And he's just like, hey, at the end of the day, I am going to kill, Jackie's boyfriend, this record producer dude, and get my money back.
I think that was the movie that Robert Forster made like a big comeback into, right?
Right, he had been the go-to just grandpa or FBI agent, and there he is, and it's so ridiculous how so many people just work for days on end and they're still not known. I'm like, really? I mean, I think you should give, in all honesty, I think you should give precedence to people who are on great behavior and have never given a bad performance over, some big shot just because their money meant a lot at the box office, but they're always late or trashing everybody's trailers. So what can you do with the elites? So I'm gonna then tackle on the role as Mr. Glass in Unbreakable and Glass. And I gotta say, I never would have thought he would have been able to tackle this kind of a psychological, villain role, wheelchair bound. They call me Mr. Glass.
I've got to say with that,
he looks the part.
yeah.
Yeah, he has the bug-eyed intensity.
They accentuate his eyes, and also the way his hair is sort of, it makes his entire head look malformed. He fits the comic book villain.
He looks like a hobo, and yet here he is just telling these disturbing stories, and his mother's, his wife is, looking over him being like, he's a nice guy. It's like, no, this guy with his supernatural powers is causing people to burn and incinerate.
But also the other side of him, he's like the comic book guy from The Simpsons. He won't sell the kid a comic book without like fully interviewing him to determine if the kid's got the knowledge.
He's the chosen one.
Yeah, it's kind of a funny side of him. He's a super villain. Well, we don't know at the time, but he's still this ultimate, comic book nerd who won't, sell the book to the kid because he doesn't have the proper knowledge. He's not worthy. It's kind of funny, other side of the personality.
Right. And when he's, gets mugged in the subway, is like, you're feeling sorry for this bastard of a person. Is like, damn, that's a lot of leverage to your role, Jackson. And just Jackson always will let out this certain, just belt out this, just kind of whenever he's in pain, and he just goes all full throttle in that scene. Oh, so I'm going to then go on to a role that I definitely know no one here has seen, and it's the marriage drama called Mother and Child. He plays opposite of Naomi Watts here, and it's a very mature, just kind of talk about appreciating the little things in life and making sure, both partners are happy without being a shitty chick flick or, pretentious Oscar drama. This is a really intelligent just drama about family, love, sex, and everything. And
Yeah.
I did not know Jackson had it in him for this kind of role. And, it's got an all-star
Flex
cast.
a little muscle.
Yeah, definitely so. And so then how about the DJ role in Do the Right Thing?
Mhm.
It's got a cool name, Sunnyvale or something like that.
The Greek chorus movie. That's the way I look at him. You know?
And at that point, everybody was honored to just be in this, pioneer. You got Richard Edson from, Strange Days and Ferris Bueller. You got Rudy D. You got Ozzie Davis, Danny Aiello, John Turturro. Everybody is in this movie, and he's Mr. Senior Love Daddy is his DJ name.
Did you ever see the show The Boondocks where they did?
He had some great roles on that. That is for sure.
But they did a takeoff on Do the Thing with that nose in the middle of the eye. No one's ever. So they did a little tribute to Do the. But yeah, he was kind of like the Greek chorus in that movie,
No, that's very true. And I mean, you mentioned earlier with Loaded Weapon 1, I think he was definitely one of the first actors who I just saw he's comfortable being in anything, whether it's a parody or a serious drama or, some other kind of movie that's going to be thrilling and exciting. And this is so, I think, just seeing him pay tribute to that kind of, important movie that has so many heated issues, and yet you feel like you're witnessing New York street life. It was definitely an honor that he got to play anything, and play the DJ in the opening that sets the tone for the rest of the movie is definitely can't be bad. So I'm gonna then move on to another just going apeshit soldier role in Kong Skull Island.
Yeah.
Yes.
I kept waiting for a shark to jump out and eat him.
That was an unexpected one for him, in my opinion.
Right? I mean, because the whole movie, everybody at first saying, was kind of monstered out, and I had to tell them, no, you don't get it. This is also a love letter to Apocalypse Now. I mean, we're following that book. It's definitely fun for him because you don't even expect him to be, the good cop, bad cop approach. You just kind of just know that he's kind of a mercenary kind of guy. He's reducing his jail sentence for some other possibly war crime kind of stuff. And, you got all these other uncanny, quirky characters, and he gets to play off as, and, then at that point, when you just see him again, just finally start going gun crazy, it's just kind of like, yeah, it's earned. He's been kind of very relaxed, and now he's basically everyone else is basically Colonel Kurtz, but he is basically some other kind of just totalitarian guy who just basically doesn't give a shit about anybody now. He's showing his true colors now.
He's Ahab in this.
Yeah, that's
Good comparison.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's
You don't do what he asks.
He's
going down with the ship.
he's remorseful at the beginning because they're about to be rotated home. He's a soldier without a war now, and then he's thrilled when they give him another assignment. He's thrilled to go back into battle and even to take his guys with him. And they're willing to go with him. They worship the man. They worship the man like a god. Like the
He
men on
said-
the
And it's set
the-
during the 70s, so that means a lot more too. I mean, Jackson has aged pretty well, so we were just able to just kind of just say, okay, yeah, he's an older gent. It's hard to
and
believe.
he got the fight he'd always wanted.
He got the fight he always wanted, and to him, taking down a giant, mutant ape is no different than, again, ordering the execution of a traitor. To him, it's just second nature. And
Yeah.
so
We're not gonna talk about his death in Deep Blue Sea.
oh we will.
Oh,
Okay, fine. Let's go into that. So I mean,
I love his
there's
death
really
in Deep
not
Blue
much
Sea.
to his
There, I'm
character,
done.
Oh yeah.
But he definitely, yeah, he this is where he started being the go-to guy in creature movies. And so you just see him just give that speech and you're like, whoa. And it's like he's giving this speech and then eaten by a fucking shark. Oh man.
Kind of pales in comparison to Robert Shaw in Jaws. He's like he gives
Certainly
speech.
quicker.
This
It's
is
only
just like
quicker. And to make it weird is all the sharks basically die the same way that the ones die in the first three movies. I'm like, okay, that's pretty wild that they did that.
We could do a
Oh.
whole episode on Robert Shaw's character in Jaws. We could do a whole episode just on Quint.
Oh, we absolutely could.
Yeah.
Best,
Oh, yes.
My God.
best movie
Everything.
speeches set in creature features. So I'm gonna move this on to another movie that's becoming a franchise for Jackson, and that's Jonathan's Avatar photo, The Hitman's Bodyguard. Seen this movie dozens of times because it basically the whole time he's playing an impressive hitman who's killed like over 150 people, and it's just fun just seeing him and Ryan Reynolds play up the whole buddy formula, like 48 Hours more particularly, while also kind of making fun of winking constantly at his role in Pulp Fiction. Just it's like, hey, yeah, I kill people, but I'm a cool dude.
the essence of being him.
Oh yeah.
And how he always.
Well, there's that. Basically it, and it's just wild just seeing him near the end when he's just storming through the supermarket, and, doing total Grand Theft Auto and trying to. A bunch of hitmen are trying to kill him, and all he has in response to him is just flipping him off because he just doesn't have a weapon.
That's what I love the most.
Yeah, I can't wait for the sequel, Hitman's Wife's Bodyguard. So then I'm going to go into another one that not many people saw, where he plays the president. So hold on to your butts. It's called Big Game, and basically it was by the same people who did Rare Exports, and it's kind of a hard target. Surviving the game kind of campy premise.
Morgan Freeman must have been busy.
I guess so, but what's funny about this one is he gets to use a machine gun at the very end, and the entire time he's learning how to kind of hunt these guys who are trying to kill him in the woods. And I wasn't surprised to see that, of course, it was a crooked guy on Secret Service planted by the vice president trying to kill him, but it was also funny because the crooked Secret Service guy is Ray Stevenson, because it does kind of have a Punisher Warzone kind of feel to it. Oh, it's actually worth watching if you just want another campy, outrageous movie. Oh, Air Force One meets Hard Target. There you go. So going on another movie from 2014, the update of RoboCop, where he plays Rush Limbaugh.
Oh, must we?
Well, I thought his Bill O'Reilly portrayal was kind of interesting, because that's who they based on for his talk show host, who's basically muting everybody about a corporation. The movie you're either going to like or hate. I thought, compared to other remakes, I liked how it was actually comfortable being its own thing instead of just redoing every single scene, actually getting inside what Robo actually looks like, instead of trying to, let's try and outdo it. It's like, well, you can't outdo it, so they just did their own thing, and it was by the people who did Elite Squad, so it was a whole different movie, but it's not for everyone. But
I still haven't seen it. So.
Okay, well, it's kind of interesting how he just interrupts everybody. He's like, your time is up, Congressman. So then do another one. It's basically his Taken Man on Fire. He in The Samaritan. where he plays an ex-con who gets into another just final heist and finds out a bunch of other just deadly secrets. This is an interesting neo-noir where he's at a bar and again, someone makes a scene, he has already told them off multiple times, and he just finally just whacks the guy into the damn bar, and the guy just dies instantly because, you know, he's hit in like the throat. And then the bartender's like, oh, what do you want me to do with the body? I'm used to dealing with, you know, creeps like this who never show up again. And Jackson's like, I'll deal with them. You take the tip. And so it's an interesting neo-noir film that's pretty comfortable being its own gritty side. And Jackson, at one time, before we find out, and he's got like some kind of terminal disease, just randomly just starts crying. Very believable. Not in just it's just more like he starts coughing and everything. And just seeing him in that, I was like, okay, cool to see him do this. Can't remember the last time he got very emotional like that. Usually he mixes emotion with shouting very loud. And here, got to kind of show a vulnerable side.
Two modes, normal and Samuel L. Jackson.
Motherfucker. Yeah. Oh, God. Turn on, turn off. So has anyone seen the indie comedy, which he did the same year as Pulp Fiction, called The Search for One-Eyed Jimmy?
Can't say I have.
I
No.
think
I've not
you can
seen.
find this on YouTube. He plays off of both
Negative.
Nick and John Turturro and Steve Buscemi. He plays this weird... It's basically a bunch of homeless losers just going after this guy who they think has been murdered by this other crime guy. And it's just this total just camp fest. Just very quirky. It's... I think I have the Region 2 DVD somewhere. It's actually region free, but it claimed it was in PAL format. It's just a very wacky movie. And it goes by at the speed of light. It's one of those you never hear of, but you would always see at the $5 Walmart bin, and it's actually not half bad. And just it creates its own just outrageous mystery as it just keeps going on and on and on. Oh, on the next one, we already talked about Boondocks. So, how about the Sunset Limited? It's basically a one-act stage play that was written by and directed by and co-starred Tommy Lee Jones, where he and Jones just basically play friends with rival viewpoints, just having a very stubborn dinner conversation. It's pretty edgy for an HBO, movie of recent years, but I was taken aback by it because I didn't expect it to be that kind of just well orchestrated, just a one location, one just kind of gimmick. And before I knew it, it just time had gone by fast. It was just a straightforward kind of interesting character study. You felt the filmmakers managed to make just kind of the quirks of real life very interesting instead of just feel uninspired and just record with a camera one day. So, Sunset Limited, everybody. I'm on to the next one, and I know this is John's favorite, The Negotiator.
Oh,
Yeah, every
One of the better
Saturday
known ones.
on TV.
Yep.
And just who'd have thought is like usually is good or bad. We'd already had movies like Heat and everything, two actors playing against one another, and it's like at this point it's like, okay, so we're gonna do a Dog Day Afternoon Die Hard type scenario, but the guy who takes over the building isn't a terrorist, isn't a bad guy, it's an anti-hero who's trying to figure out who framed him. It's a fugitive. Instead of Tommy Lee Jones telling the SWAT team to hold their fire, it's Kevin Spacey. But to make up for it, Jackson does call her him multiple times during the movie, so there's that.
Well, unique bit of role reversal, but Samuel L. Jackson, him playing like a Hans Gruber type character would be so brilliant.
I'm surprised he hasn't. I guess as close as he got was the
I
Spirit.
should love to see that.
Please let's not mention the Spirit.
No,
about that movie ever again.
let's not. No.
You're killing John, guys. Don't do it. Don't do it.
Mm-hmm.
I think The Negotiator was interesting because basically, it was, we were so used to people doing kind of knockoffs and rival twin movies at that time, and this movie just took the best elements of Heat and The Fugitive and Die Hard, and then kind of just put it an extra step further, and you had a big all-star cast, and even when you know the mystery, it's still got a few other extra layers to it, so it doesn't feel like it's just a happy ending or a last-minute resort. It's like, okay, but this person got killed because of this, and did the framing because of that, and there's plenty of other people who you think, well, you know, because they're cops and they're union, maybe they're partial to it or possibly knew about it, so it really does, you know, pretty impressive by F. Gary Gray to try going up a step notch further and try and be kind of like Assault on Precinct 13 or Serpico. And I think that's why it's often held as one of the best, you know, crooked cop, you know, action dramas. But yeah, that's all I got for it. I guess we're moving on. Formula 51. Has anyone ever seen this?
Actually, I've not seen this one.
Okay, it's also known as the 51st State. So basically, long story short, Robert Carl and Jackson play drug dealers who go on wacky car rides. It was by Ronnie Yu of, you know, Freddy vs. Jason fame, and it's definitely an interesting kind of. It definitely will remind people of those kind of, you know, Snatch and those other Tarantino kind of movies. The British twist to it isn't half bad. I just remember seeing endless trailers for it. And that was, you know, 2002 was definitely a big year for Jackson. He was in fucking everything in that time. And I was like, oh, yeah, okay. Interesting seeing all these, you know, tanks and, you know, drug explosions and everything. Yeah, once again, if you like just outrageous action crime comedies, I think you might find this to be an interesting music video styled movie. Especially if it's
the one thing I can say about Formula 51 is there was a guy at work named Brad. Brad, if you're listening, what's up? He knew more about movies than anyone I know, and he kept recommending this to me. Like, he kept saying, "Why have you not watched this?" And I never did watch it. So, Brad, I'm sorry, but this movie came with his highest recommendation, and coming from Brad, that meant something. And I'm sorry that I have never seen it.
There is a gory explosion at the end, so it's definitely up your alley. I mean,
yeah, I'm gonna have to definitely check it out.
I think you can find it definitely in one of those Mill Creek Blu-ray or DVD multi-packs. It's got to be on there by now. It did not make much money, but it had a high user score, and of course, I think even Roger Ebert even liked it. So there you go.
And look what happened to him.
Oh wow.
I don't think there's a correlation there, though.
Probably not. So years ago, Matt Damon and Jackson were actually considered for the roles in Training Day, with Damon as the good cop Jake, and Jackson in Denzel's role of Alonzo, the bad cop. And that did not happen. But what did happen was Jackson got to play an evil cop in Lakeview Terrace.
I remember that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that one.
It was definitely kind of a slow burn, iffy kind of movie. I don't think Patrick Wilson is much of an actor, but I do recall it being pretty watchable when it kind of ran out of ideas. It was done, you know. It felt like it was a 90s movie that somehow got delayed and finally pushed back to finally here. And it's like, well, why didn't this come out around at the same time as, you know, Unlawful Entry, you know, Pacific Heights, all those kinds of movies?
Yeah. I also think they almost got lost in the shuffle, you know. When you think about it, that whole time, you know.
You didn't know what to expect from Screen Gems because they were doing so many crappy action and horror movies at that time, and here, lo and behold, here's a mystery movie. It was like, okay, well, is it going to be any good? And it was also just one of those, depending on the audience or critic, it had like a 60 to 70%. So based on who you asked, determined who actually recommended it. So it is one of those I can't full-heartedly recommend, but it's definitely an atypical Jackson bad guy role and home invasion type movie. But at the same time, it doesn't really make good on its ideas. So if you see it on TV, you might give it a watch. Otherwise, you also, I mean, it really just depends on how big a fan of Jackson you are.
Yeah, that's my opinion as well on that one. Pretty much.
I mean,
It's a fun movie. Just, I don't think it's aged well. It feels, particularly with like events of the last several years, like that whole concept just won't stand the test of time.
that is also a good point too, and Kerry Washington also pretty much has a nothing role. It's like, seriously, why did every female role? I saw a correlation in the 2000s where it's like they got nothing to do except say, "Oh, honey, I hope you're okay," or
Pretty much, yeah.
and it's just like, then why even cast it if you're not gonna make use of the actor or the actress? Is stupid, but whatever. 187. This is another movie he did where he played teacher at a chaotic high school, finding out some shady secrets about various people. It's another one that hasn't aged as well due to some statutory, predicaments. But it's also kind of renowned because near the end, the movie just the more moody it gets, the more striking colors it uses, and then it has a Deer Hunter style Russian roulette session where the gangsters right. The gang members who are harassing Jackson say, "Okay, let's figure it out this way."
That was the one with the Pyrrhic victory at the end, right? The girl makes the speech about the Pyrrhic victory.
I don't recall that.
Yeah.
All I know is it was just a earlier role for Clifton Collins Jr. and a bunch of other just very talented actors. But yeah, it's another thriller. It's like it was just always at the video store, and it's like, okay, interesting. But again, lost in the shuffle. So I'll go with the better known role as none other than Zeus in Die Hard with a Vengeance, the third movie in that franchise.
Liked it.
Oh yeah,
it was fun.
Don't fuck with me, or I'll shove a lightning bolt up your ass.
But I like his role in that because he obviously has a chip on his shoulder. But the reason he gets drawn into the entire, conundrum is that he wants to keep Bruce Willis from getting beat to death.
Right.
You know what I mean? He goes out there and he doesn't even like. He says, "I don't even like white people," but he does it to save a man's life, and he winds up getting drawn into this fucking wishy-gosh.
Right, that's exactly it. Because he'd done all these hood roles, and here he is playing a guy in the hood who's just like, I can't stand those guys who are fucking up our neighborhood, but you just invite all the trouble because now they're going to come to my store.
Every cop is going to be exactly. Yeah, I thought that was a nice twist on the character. You expected one thing,
and McClane repays him by tricking him to help him. Thanks, McClane.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's also kind of wild too how Jackson has to be taught how to use a gun. He only knows how to use a pistol. He doesn't know how to be used machine guns. So then, lo and behold, Jeremy Irons
doesn't even comment on that. Does he say, "But just because I'm from the neighborhood, I know how to use a machine gun"? Which is pretty. Yeah, I like that.
Oh boy, it's great.
Mm-hmm.
And fun fact: the kids playing his nephews are Aldous and Edwin Hodge, who are real life brothers who have since gone on to have successful careers. Edwin mostly in TV, and Aldous on various shows like. Oh, you knew that? Yeah. He later went on to roles.
Well, I was saying, I found it out years ago, and I was surprised that was them. So
right, Leverage and Turn and Underground and Walking Dead. Aldous got to be on, and Aldous even had a brief role in Part 5. But let's move on to a movie that Jackson actually is.
Oh.
Let's go with The Great White Hype.
I've actually not watched this one.
This is another comedy. It depends on your mileage. There's plenty of movies which I'll watch, and the language isn't, it is R-rated, but not helping it. And then there's other movies where it's like, okay, yeah, this is just a long ass stretch, in between laughs. So it's a pretty mediocre at best. This one, whatever you do, don't watch it on regular TV, but it's got an all-star cast that includes, Jeff Goldblum, Corbin Burnson, Peter Berg. And I really did have a fun time with it because even though the director Ron Shelton disowned it, I'm surprised he didn't disown Hollywood Homicide. There's worse movies on your fucking resume, dude. But on this one, I think what this one gets right is just making fun of just the toxic culture of, athletes and boxing people, and you got Jamie Foxx as the rival champ, and Damon Wayans in a funny one. John Lovett's in there as a guy, as a businessman betting on the team. And just an outrageous movie altogether. I can't recommend it enough.
Yeah, I definitely gotta check that one out.
And did anyone else see this one or catch it on TV at one point?
I guess no.
I remember seeing it, and they actually did. I mean, they did it where Jackson's character is almost like a Don King kind of character.
That's totally what they based him off as.
And the thing I love about it is they do the one scene where they're doing the weigh-in, and Damon Wayans has that thing where the fighters have the bloated gut a little bit,
right?
And it's it was I remember watching weigh-ins, and that actually would happen. The guy would show up, and he'd have a belly on him, and you'd be like, "Is this guy really freaking fighting?"
Exactly. It's just showing you how the whole you're good enough to fight. It's no, you're not good enough to fight. Yeah. This person is gonna cost you more money over time because they're not ready to fight.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, when did that come out? That came out in 96.
96. So. It got overshadowed by Goldblum's other hit movie of Independence Day. But it's also funny seeing him in this because, out of all the people who you can easily imitate, because of their larger-than-life persona, seeing him in here as a guy who's having to play opposite of Jackson, maybe even try buying, into his, gambling ring. It is pretty wild how that goes. Peter Berg is hysterical as the guys in the locker room getting blowjobs. It's not an over. Yeah. Before he was, he was just off of Chicago Hope when he was doing this, so it is but it is kind of a funny early film appearance for him. John Rhys Davies, that's right, Indy.
Nice.
Is here. Cheech Marin is there. Sully Richardson. Definitely the best movie Jamie Foxx ever made. So I'll just put it there. He's done some stinkers. Oh, so on to another noir that's a favorite of John's. Kiss of Death.
Mm-hmm.
Remake of the 1947 noir film. I would just always see this on cable TV, and what was always just so funny is, Nicolas Cage is kind of one of the few movies I could stand him in, even to this day, where he, before he became Mr. Bad Movie himself, he was, going around causing mayhem. It was David Caruso's attempt at being a movie star that didn't pan out, but it's an interesting noir piece. And Jackson plays, again, one of the guys in law enforcement helping him get a conviction on Cage's, kingpin. And it was always so funny because depending on what channel I was on, I could tell which one, was the safe to air version of the movie versus the not safe to view version, because there's a lot of scenes in a strip club. So it was always just one of those I would catch on TV, and I was like, because it has similar titles to other movies in Jackson's filmography, I didn't necessarily know which one, he had a big role in. This one does have an interesting role where he just flat out socks Caruso in the face. He just flat out just punches him in the face. Is like, there, now we're even. What do you need my help?
Pull back the vest and assert yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Before you go making fun of yourself, putting on your shades, how about I just give you a fucking slug to the face? Oh, God. Anyone else ever see that one, or was it just one of those got lost in the shuffle in the video store?
I really liked
guess
Kiss
I
of Death. I
recall
thought Nicolas Cage's performance was great. Very terrifying guy.
Before he started doing the whole, is like,
yeah, right. But yeah,
right.
wasn't this the movie that sort of like after David Caruso thought he was going to be hot shit, and then wasn't really, and this movie sort of started him back on his career back, sort of thing.
Yeah, yeah.
Listen, Jay, I thought
then-
he did good at just still being in Jim Kelly and YPD Blue mode. But like you
Yeah,
say,
he got a little bit full of it. He got a little bit full of himself, and then, but this movie was sort of the beginning of his path back to success. I just love watching the original First Blood, the first Rambo movie, and seeing him in it.
Right.
He looked like he's about 14 in it. It's great.
Absolutely. I think we were even watching some older shows he was on, and it is the same thing. It's like, good God, he looked younger than he actually was. And it's just so wild how he wanted to be taken serious, and he had this ego and narcissism that was just to the point where everyone just was like, okay, fuck it. Do it your way, but as soon as we wrap, you're not coming to the rap party. Oh. And I will say, as far as remakes go, the movie holds its own. The original movie is a good, black and white noir piece, but
Oh, come on. No, I got to disagree with you because Richard Widmark is Tommy Newell.
That's true.
Laugh.
No, that's fine.
You know.
No, I mean, I just like what I'm trying to get at is I like both movies as their own thing versus as where you look at the remake and all you get is less. But yes, Widmark is an excellent actor. That is true. It's probably ironically it's one of the first movies that comes up on his resume each time you Google his name. So there you go. That's how important a role it is. So got to go with the HBO prison drama Against the Wall. This was heavily talked about on John Frankenheimer's episode of The Directors, and how could it not be? It was a very restricted budget, made for like just $2 million. And again, the same thing, at that point, Frankenheimer was a has-been, and he didn't know when his next gig was coming in because everyone liked him, wanted to work with him, but his last movies had underperformed, and it just was beyond his control. And he started kind of becoming the go-to guy, doing a bunch of HBO original movies, and this was the first one. Just seeing the actual Attica prison riot as it went down. Kyle MacLachlan, definitely a better role for Danny Trejo, and it's an interesting just prison drama, how it just documents the whole thing without just, filling like violent mess, so to speak. Anyone else ever catch this one?
What was it called?
Against the Wall.
Okay. When did that come out?
94.
That.
Okay, hang on a minute. I do remember that coming out for some strange reason.
No, it's all good. I
Yeah.
really dug how, Kyle MacLachlan, he was perfectly cast here because, he's fresh off Twin Peaks and a bunch of other cult movies like The Hidden. And
Yeah.
here he's playing the rookie prison guard who gets to understand this guy who's leading a prison revolt, against crappy conditions and utter turmoil. There basically was a war happening in a prison,
As they often do.
Yeah. Attica. No,
Almost like a prototype for Oz.
Yeah.
that's a good point. Yeah, I definitely, I have no doubt that one of the producers was looking at, the returns on that movie and its reception. He's like, so whenever Tom Fontana at St. Elsewhere said, how about we do that? He was instantly going to say yes the minute he heard prison drama. Oz is such a great show. Can't recommend it enough. Surprised Jackson wasn't on there.
He would have fit right in.
He would have totally been a perfect prison warden. As much as I love Ernie Hudson, it would have been interesting seeing him on there.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm gonna go with another bad guy role, meeting evil.
Never heard that one.
Okay, well, it's not the greatest, but it is interesting seeing him do a full-blown Collateral Hitcher type psycho role.
When did that come out?
It was had to be 2012, around the time that everyone's embracing, limited releases. And not his biggest must-see movie, but if you just want just a random serial killer causing mayhem, it's absolutely worse.
Interesting.
So on to Afro Samurai.
Responding to that, come on.
As soon as I saw, my brother and I would watch endless episodes of MXC, Most Extreme Elimination Challenge, and just see endless ads for that. And he was like, "There's no way that's a real movie." I'm like, "It's a real show." With Jackson, Afro Samurai. Honestly, I can't see him not being in this. He had to be in it, you know. It's the Raza doing music for it, with some neat jams, and
Really was kismet.
just such a fan of martial arts movies. I on occasion I've seen a rumor that they were considering a live action movie. I'm like, well, you missed your boat, but you should totally do it. It would kill.
That's real. Oh.
It was on Spike TV, but
All right.
same kind of difference.
Yeah.
Same kind of difference. I would have totally normally seen, after especially seeing Jackson on Boondocks, for this to be on the Tanami block, but it's too gory, so there's no way they would have aired it. Oh, I had a love-hate relationship with it, but at the end of the day, you end up kind of just having a little fun with it, even though it's not the best. Just that urban twist to it is just enough. And Jackson, the reason I'm recommending this technically counts as like 3 different roles, but for the sake of this 50 plus roles, I'm just going to contain it as one, because he does also voice a few different other people in it, including like an old sensei and grandfather of the town who's like, you're going to put someone's eye out with that Negro, you know, shit like that, just going around. Just...
And I do believe that is pretty much what it directly inspired the Boondocks, but particularly his role.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was around the same time-ish, so, but I definitely made him start getting more animated appearances. We'll mention some of them. I'm going to definitely bring up he's like in the 1st or 2nd season of Law and Order, and it's interesting seeing him there because, you know, at that time that was everybody's dream, still is to some people, be on a hit show. And there he's playing a district attorney, just flat out just saying right up, hey, this case isn't going to go well if you play that card, yada yada. And it's just so interesting just seeing him with glasses and
A departure for him.
oh yeah, especially at that time, 1991, Jesus. And brings us on to another atypical role that I saw just played endlessly, is now playing on pay-per-view, Changing Lanes. Anyone ever see this one?
Yes. Him, Bennett. Ooh.
It's a like it or hate it kind of movie, and it's kind of like Falling Down, where it's just basically you're just getting the rage. And I wish they would make more. It's one of those, I don't like Ben Affleck's arc, but I do like Jackson's arc, where he's just a frustrated dad and businessman. They're kind of want to get revenge on each other, and it's one of those. I think the biggest disappointment is it's set in LA. It should have made better use of the LA scenario.
Yeah,
It kind of fades away in the background after a while, but it's definitely another movie I kind of have a love-hate relationship. I don't enjoy sitting down for it in one scoop, but I do like seeing clips of it on occasion.
same here.
Oh, God. But like JJ just pointed out, it is kind of one of those, is like, so much fucking potential. It's-
You think the movie's going to go places, and
Yep.
then it's just like,
it gets very messy when
it
it
had to go there. You know,
Toni Collette's a great actress, and it's like the minute it gets into that whole "I'm getting a divorce" is like, why is this portion in the movie? So we already mentioned Loaded Weapon 1. Has anyone seen? I know most people have seen Patriot Games, but I actually like his CIA agent role in that.
Yep.
now did he took over for? Did he take over for the James Earl Jones character?
James is still in it. He's playing a different character, but he's kind of assigned to be kind of a protected escort, just kind of make sure that Jack Ryan's family is in good hands. And it's just so funny at one point. Harrison Ford has an angry confrontation with Richard Harris, who's kind of sponsoring these IRA type activity at a bar, And then he goes back to like his portion of like the Pentagon or West Wing type area where they meet with Joint Chiefs type people, and he's recounting this to him. And Jackson just like flat out just puts his hands up, saying, "Well, shoot, man, I hope you don't lose your anger out on me." It's just funny seeing him be an innocent kind of bystander kind of role. He gets to take out a bunch of Sean Bean's, terrorist henchmen, so that's kind of cool.
We should also mention one other film the same year with Sam Jackson, White Sands.
That was the one I was going to definitely mention next. This is another one that just flew under the radar. You remember William Dafoe and evil Mickey Rourke, just around the time when every movie was kind of having to be like, someone to watch over me and Point Break. And this is another kind of noir type film, and Jackson basically plays the superior of Dafoe's, who may or may not be dead or an imposter. It's just one of those kinds of movies, like, no one is who they say they're going to be. And anyone who said they had it all figured out, you are a liar. It's not hard to figure out, but you did not have it all figured out in frame one.
So lying.
Even with all the movies and shows now that are just trying to outdo Usual Suspects, there's nothing. This is a very twisted movie, very well done by Roger Donaldson, I believe. And
Yep,
yeah,
it was.
Mm-hmm.
I almost said Spottiswoode, different awesome UK filmmaker.
Yeah, that one had a lot of interesting twists in it that I did think was very clever, particularly with Sam Jackson's character. I was pleasantly surprised.
And I think the main issue was I would see it on different channels or something, and you got to be in the right kind of mood to just get into this, because this is relentless from that point on. And we would not be a Jackson list if, we already mentioned Coming to America and Deep Blue Sea, if we did not mention Jungle Fever. As drug-addicted brother. And hearing Jackson talk about this role and how it basically, he had some kind of drug addiction at that point. He just getting so into character, he realized, oh wow, I could actually die like Gator. I got to give up drugs. And playing off against, crackhead Holly Berry and established brother, Wesley Snipes. I think that was just kind of what was interesting to this whole movie. There's areas of it that I don't think have aged well, but it's still an interesting social commentary kind of movie.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, how about snakes on a plane?
Oh, knew that was coming up.
Monkey fighting snakes on a Monday to Friday plane.
Oh, that's a great movie to watch. I got to watch it with my ex-wife when we were still married. And
God!
yeah,
Don't tell me this was a date night movie.
no, this was one. This was.
May wonders why she's his ex.
No, this is one of those movies. Like, she picked up. She said, "Hey, let's watch Snakes on a Plane," and I'm like, "Okay." Like,
Okay.
Okay. And I started watching it, and I was getting into it because it was like, it was just such a far-fetched idea for a movie.
Mm-hmm.
A guy who's a witness to a crime is going to be killed when a guy puts a whole shitload of snakes on a plane, and Samuel Jackson has to freaking protect him. And he says one of the best, all these all these motherfucking snakes on my plane. It's just that line is just like, boom. And to me, it's a big stupid movie to watch.
It really is. It's
Yeah.
David R. Ellis, who had worked previously with Jackson as the second unit director on those Jack Ryan adaptations, as well as Final Destination 2 and 5. It made sense that this was just a very lowbrow, campy action horror movie. People were going to be squiggling in their seats and then losing their breath. And, I did see a bootleg of it at the time, didn't care for it. But then, I eventually kind of, as my love of just So Bad They're Good or just outrageous party movies increased, I just started saying, okay, this movie might have an identity crisis. And the studio, this was before you had red band trailers where they would show, the explicit R-rated content on before it came out. But what was interesting about this movie is it was just so hyped up. People were doing fan art for it, using other moments of Jackson's likeness, and people didn't care that it wasn't in on the joke, or it was just an outrageous, 80s type of crazy, zany kind of movie. Is like, well, regardless, now we got again. All the channels had their work cut out for it on how they choose to censor it when they air it, and then, like you say, there's just so many people are just quoting the line, and
This one was made with the intent of it being slaughtered on network TV.
it was like, yeah, it was an internet meme before it was even that was even a thing. It was just like,
Well, the thing is, I gotta say with that is you've got Juliana Margulies, who's I think it just left ER,
and Ghost Ship. Oh,
and
see what
then
see what I did there.
and then you've got of all people, Ian Thompson.
Yeah, SNL and David Koester from Anchorman as the pilot, and then you got all these CGI snakes, and then
he's I don't know how to fly a plane. He's like, wait, I thought you knew how to fly a plane. I just play it on the. He says something. I play it on the Xbox on my computer.
Right.
And I'm like, oh great, this is like one of these movies where it's gonna be like it's gonna be like a bad episode of Laverne and Shirley where they're gonna learn how to fly the plane.
Right. You thought MacGyver was campy. This is for real and yet so fucking ridiculous. And yeah.
But this was the movie, I think, Mystery Science. I think that when Mystery Science Theater or
was starting up, they were like, "Do you want to riff it?" And I think they're like, probably not because it's too over the top. But they're definitely going to take on other movies.
But what gets me is David Koechner is in it. He was on the SNL for like 1 or 2 seasons.
Yep.
And I was like, what's he doing here? But the premise of it, the premise of it being, these snakes, and you can tell they're CGI. CGI, and you're watching him, and he's just like, is like at that point where he's like at the breaking point, and then all of a sudden he's like, no, wait a minute, hold on, I gotta do this, and it's a fun movie to watch. I don't know why people were so, but I thought it was funny. I thought it was a great movie. It
is kind of outrageous. It's also one of those, depending on your mood. I mean, most people are not going to even check it out just because it's just such an outrageous premise. But for those of us who just like just wacky movies, I would be surprised if anyone hasn't seen it, because it is interesting just seeing Jackson kind of just having to realize he must anchor the movie by Act 2 after what starts out as a witness protection movie and then becomes a creature feature. And they're setting all these snakes on fire, and the guy in witness protection ends up accidentally getting shot by him because there's a snake coming out of him like Alien.
True. I think we lost him.
Yeah.
Can barely hear you.
Yeah, I can't hear you, JJ.
I hear you.
JJ, breaking up here, buddy. JJ. Ah.
Oh dear.
No. Oh dear. I got some pills to swallow. No one knows. I don't know. We're losing you.
Yeah.
Moving right along.
Okay.
JJ, dude. Okay. Has anyone seen? That's where I'm gonna have to insert a commercial break.
Yeah.
Let's hear some Incredibles jokes. Where's my super suit?
Yeah. Where's my super suit?
Honey.
Where's my super suit?
Playing a guy named Frozone, totally based on a mixture of Iceman.
That's what I said.
There are too many ice-based superheroes.
I guess so. I mean, Mr. Freeze, all that shit. it's interesting how The Incredibles kind of evolved, and they took fucking forever to do a sequel to it, and that was like one of the few family-friendly movies Jackson was in, and yet, oh,
Nope.
saw that. Get you back on. Yeah. Anyone has any incredible stories they want to share, you can do that. Otherwise, I got nothing else. Other than that, it's a very quotable movie.
Yeah, I mean, I remember seeing it in the theater, and I remember liking it as a kid, and still like it to this day. But it's not one of my favorite animated films, but I can still watch it.
Not sure what took so long to make a sequel.
Politics, I think. Pixar having a different thing. Probably last year firing also probably interfered with a bit. You know?
That's probably true.
When you're working with Toxic. There we go. He's back on. I added you back to the call. All right.
Oh, good.
Yeah, we pretty much wrapped up Snakes. Just, like you say, just it was an absurd movie. Do you have any stories of The Incredibles?
You know, I saw The Incredibles when it came out, and I'm going to say this, being a comic book fan, it was a great testimony, and to see his character, you know, be a henpecked husband.
Right.
Because,
no time for family or kids, and what he loves nothing more than anything is to just stop, trains from falling off the tracks.
But the part I love is when he's like arguing with his wife, have you seen my suit? And the whole argument is back and forth.
Mhm.
It's just like, what superhero would not, like, you don't see Superman arguing with Lois Lane. This was just something.
Whatever, honey. It's over there on the dining table.
Yeah. I'm mad he didn't go in the was he in the second one or no?
Yeah, he was.
I don't know.
He was in the second one.
Okay. He was in the second one.
It really wouldn't be The Incredibles without him. But yeah.
That's what made his character so great, is that him and Craig T. Nelson's character were like buddies.
Right. They're at the same exact office.
Other guys that were like, So that's what made that character so good. I mean, he was just fun to watch, and he was cool too. To see him, this character like that. He's not secondary here. He's.
Here we go again.
Hey, you okay there, buddy? Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So, other than that one, I think really what it did so well was just, like you say, just make fun of the tropes that you typically say, and then do just little minor things like, here's how a superhero gets lunch while at their day job. Here's how they save an incident. I mean, you even have a spoof of his moment in Die Hard 3 where he's stopped by a subway cop and he's like, I'm getting a glass of water, don't shoot me. So,
yeah.
It's pretty wild. I do recommend the period piece drama Ragtime, which was one of the first movies he did. He's basically a featured extra in this, but it's also James Cagney's final role.
Yeah, as the
revolutionaries.
And Cagney kind of steals the show out from everybody in that movie.
Yeah.
It was his first role, like, I think since 62 or 63, because he did 1, 2, 3 with Billy Wilder. And when he came back, the character that he played wasn't older, he was younger. So they did the age makeup. But I didn't know he was in Ragtime until like just recently.
Really?
Yeah, I didn't know Samuel Jackson was.
Believe it or not, it was one of the first movies It was one of the first movies I saw Cagney in, and back in college, I would frequent Rapid Share. I would download just endless, mega upload. I would download any movie with my favorite actors and Jackson, Lou Diamond Phillips. Tony Todd, Lance Henriksen, all those guys were basically people I would check all their movies out. And so it was just so wild how eventually I got to his earlier movies he had done. And it's like, wow, he'd just done so many TV specials and PBS movies that are basically just film stage productions. But this one is interesting because, yeah, it's an extra role, but yet he's still playing a key person who has like 5 different scenes. So it's just a non-credited role at this point, but paid him as an extra.
Damn connections.
Yeah.
What are we gonna do? And he just yeah. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Yeah, we can hear.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, so, like you say, a testament to acting and just a surprising cast that people you never would suspect are in it.
A movie, I think has been lost in the shuffle with Samuel L. Jackson between True Romance and Pulp Fiction, and that's Fresh.
I was gonna mention that one. Good call. As the douchebag abandoning dad who lets his kid.
Yeah, he's the.
And
yeah, it's an amazing role for him to be in because Bozyakin did it, and I saw it in college. And I remember being just like blown away. This kid is like 12 years old. His father, he plays the alcoholic father who's a speed chess champion, and
right,
he stands out.
He's totally
His
cops
part,
out,
too, like-
abandons his kid, and then just is laughing at him like, "You don't get it, man. It's easy. Just hustle." And it's like, why would any psychopath, just let their kid just deal drugs and be around violent people? It's like, damn.
And the ending,
Ending. They're playing a game of chess.
And the father just berates him and just basically puts him down. He looks and he's looking up at his father crying. He's like, he kind of lost his childhood, that movie. And the father's like,
I don't start scuffing, yeah.
Yeah. And
don't get it, son.
You don't get it, son. But that movie, I remember seeing that movie in college, just being like blown away by it. But he comes into that role, the way he comes into his scenes, and just seen Pulp Fiction the year before, because we got video the year after. I think it was some where we would watch in college, and I was like, your head turns when he's in those scenes,
Yeah, because he starts out narrating, and you don't realize, you think he's abandoned the kid, and then you realize, oh my god, that dude the kid was talking to is his dad, who he's recounting all his tragedies.
Yeah.
What would be a very depressing episode of Homicide or The Wire ends up being a full-fledged, just relentless account, kind of like Goodfellas, but for, hood dealers, and it's like, damn.
And the thing that always upsets me is that kid, his best friend Chucky, the real heavyset kid, making himself out to be a drug dealer, and he goes to shoot the guys, and he drops the gun. The gun goes under the tire. He shoots the tire, and then the guys come and shoot him. And he's just like, you just see the kid's face. Oh my god! They just shot my friend.
Yeah.
It's very, very, very hard to look at. I mean, it's not hard, but it's it's very, very tough to.
Instead of feeling like like you say, a very staged movie, it does feel very relentlessly real. And I've been meaning to rewatch it for a while. I might end up doing it for the Giancarlo Esposito episode. So
yeah,
definitely the first movie I saw him in.
I remember Giancarlo Samuel Jackson.
He's been in. Yeah, that's true. He is in School Days and even Trading Places, but that was definitely the first movie where he played a very key villain role that I was like, I know this guy's face. He's this part Italian, part African guy who was on Sesame Street and Breaking Bad.
He was on Sesame Street?
that's how he started out.
Oh
Just
my
like
god!
he
And
could sing and dance. So yeah, and we'll definitely
Damn.
have plenty of stories for him.
Hmm.
So what's interesting, like to say, Fresh, seeing Fresh and then seeing him in his uncredited cameo in Out of Sight as George Clooney's, prison bound, guy on the bus, as well as Menace to Society as the alcoholic drug father who has just one line saying, "Give me my fucking money," and shooting the guy. And Menace to Society, it just made sense that he's in Fresh because now he's playing different degrees of criminals and fodder figures who are unreliable.
And that drove you strengths.
Well done.
Okay.
So I
He's
was
also in Eddie Murphy's.
Yeah, he is in Eddie Murphy's Raw, and as his dad in like one segment. I guess you could mention that as an interesting role because sounds like
Yeah, I'm having trouble hearing you guys.
yeah, dude. Yeah, we okay then? We settled?
We good?
We good?
I'm okay.
JJ.
I'm here.
Okay, sorry, I heard a lot of shuffle. Okay. So yeah, Raw's definitely an interesting role for him because it's just an atypical dad role, and I'm gonna give I guess I'll mention his role in Basic. We just mentioned Menace to Society, Out of Sight, and Fresh, because it's again another soldier role, and the whole time Jackson, depending, much like Courage Under Fire and Rashomon, depending on what segment you watch, determines whether or not, he's the good guy or bad guy in the argument.
You don't find out to the very end.
Right, where you get the truth about the whole thing, and it was just a movie that flew under the radar, but he was reunited with John Travolta, and definitely one of John Travolta's better movies, in my opinion. A lot of people don't like this one but compared to other mystery movies, you're less likely to be disappointed compared to other ones, which just were like really bad, Scream, other knockoffs.
Very true.
So I guess I'll give some honorable mentions to his bad father role in Eve's Bayou, his barfly role in Trees Lounge with Steve Buscemi, his abusive, banjo player in Black Snake Moan, and his loudmouth patron role in Mo Better Blues, and his cop held hostage role in No Good Deed with Mila Jovovich, and the narrator in the Go the Fuck to Sleep book, and the buddy movie The Man. So that's all I got.
We also talk about his role in Kingsman as the main villain.
How did I forget that in the whole 50? He's really great in it. I don't know. I guess I could trade that out, but I'll put that in an honorable mention.
Yeah.
I don't know how I forgot it. I guess I was just so.
I just realized now.
I was so distracted by Hitman's Bodyguard. Thank you, John. Otherwise, someone would have probably sent a hate mail saying, "How do you forget Kingsman?"
I think it's my word, though.
He probably would have. They've been like, he's playing a James Bond homage role. Villain. Right. He's basically hates. What's interesting about that movie is how he basically hates corporate people, and yet he also embraces the corporate side of life. He's the kind of guy who hates, the Trump and Bloombergs of the world, and yet kind of takes their money and then becomes just as bad as them. That's kind of the funny twist. Is like he's acting like a Robin Hood, kind of a diehard Ford type villain, where he's using his former, spy and computer hacking skills to send a message, and then he gets lost in the shuffle because at the end of the day, he's still just an evil asshole.
Very true.
Who's making the whole mind control, having people fight each other, that was pretty ingenious.
I'll say this about another movie that Samuel L. Jackson did that kind of was it
Man,
wouldn't fly today, but Amos and Andrew. If anybody remembers that movie,
I love that movie. Oh my god. I thought
Yep.
I put it on the list, but lo and behold, I didn't somehow.
it's a good movie to watch because the premise is funny, and the way they handle it is
Dabney
Nicolas Cage
Coleman as the faded police chief. Yeah, it's so funny.
was in that
Brad Dourif,
Michael,
remember? Yeah, and as the psychologist. And here Jackson's playing a established author who, is in Mississippi at a new house, and everyone's like, "Oh, he's just another guy who we're gonna, light up on the news."
Massachusetts. He's in Massachusetts.
That's what it was. Yes.
A new house, and the neighbors think he's breaking in, and then what they do is so to save face, Dabney Coleman gets Nicolas Cage's character.
He's like his nephew who's like in prison.
Yeah. Says, look, listen, we want you to go into this house and hold this guy hostage, because if it looks like we arrest him, we're going to be racist, bigoted assholes. So you're going to go in, and they develop this like friendly bond with each other while all this is going on.
It's like you say, it's a good parody of both the Desperate Hours and the Defiant Ones. They did it. They appeared in this 2 years before they were in Kiss of Death, and it's just funny because there's not much language, but when there is some profanity, it is pretty funny for a PG-13 movie. It doesn't feel restricted like other 90s movies where they just relied on Jim Carrey or Dana Carvey to carry the whole thing. And
it wasn't like that movie Cage did where they were the robbers who robbed the house. Who robbed the bank.
I see what you did there. Caged in.
Yeah.
But,
there's a
Sir in that movie too.
Oh, who else?
Who's in that?
I'm drawing blanks, but there's plenty of other people who were playing deputies, and it was pretty wild. And there's Sir Mix-a-Lot's Suburban Nightmare plays in the end credits, which just is icing on the cake. And it just ends in the most wacky thing. It's just a wacky satire, and I wish they would make more movies like this. Now, if they did it, it would be probably too heavy-handed or just unpleasant, regardless of whether you agree with the message or not. So this one was just pretty wild because, having in Massachusetts, just all these guys, not much has changed, so it's endlessly going to be funny from that point on. But, and it keeps it pretty basic, and I've always been inconsistent on whether or not I would call it an action movie, but some sites have listed it as action just because of the car chase at the end. That's also in the trailer. Man, does that car get shot up good. Oh.
True.
Yeah, it's good call in there. That is a outrageous movie. And so now that we've taken on most of his IMDb profile, I think this is a good where I call time. I let you guys plug yourselves. JJ, I'll let you promote anything you got going, and then I'll start with Daniel and Jonathan.
Nothing much except probably I'm writing a little bit more on the website. I haven't been doing it, as I said last week.
If you got any blogs you want to show,
I'm gonna probably be looking into the 1978 Gabe Kaplan movie, Fast Break, where he played a basketball coach, and
I've heard of it. I haven't seen that one.
Right at the time, it was always on a double bill with like that and Lee Cross, where she played the female coach of a basketball team with Michael Bean. Anybody remembers that? Also, I'm going to be looking into Canadian comedies,
because
Oh yeah.
I was looking into a movie that came out in 1979, 1980 called Hog Wild. Tony Rosado, who just passed away a couple years ago, Michael Biehn, and the guy who played the fat guy in Meatballs are in it. And it was this movie about a guy who what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start doing a thing about movies according to state. So there's Hog Wild, which is Canada, which I always say is like, our neighbor north. But there's a movie also called Drive-In, which took place in Lubbock, Texas,
Oh
in
really?
1970. Oh yeah, it was Crown Royal. It's the whole movie is basically like American Graffiti in a
Not a bad template
so
to rip
I actually
off.
found it on YouTube. No, but it's fun to watch. And then I'm going to do something about American Graffiti too, which
Okay, very cool.
so those are the things I'll post about on my Facebook, and
Well,
I'm going to do that. So that's
I've definitely
probably my
seen
next thing.
many Canadian film and show, but I guess sadly, the most Canadian comedy I've seen is just like Little Mosque on the Prairie or Trailer Park Boys.
Well, it's SCTV, and then there's
you
a
go.
movie that nobody knows. There's a movie that nobody knows about with Andrea Mark called Trouble Girl,
I've not
which is
seen
a
that one. That's
really to watch. It's to watch.
pretty wild. Alrighty, very cool. So I look forward to those things. Feel free to share that blog. What is the House of Tortured Souls up to?
Not really all that much, I'm afraid to say.
The weather's still pretty shitty in that area.
Oh yeah, I've been snowed in quite a bit for the last week. Monday, Tuesday, I could not get it at all. Today, it's a miracle I got outside because it was snowing again. We're due for more on Sunday.
Ugh,
But
Jersey, man.
taking the time to work on some videos. I got stuff coming up.
Okay, well, even better. And Jonathan, I know you've been reviewing a few different movies. Do you have any other upcoming reviews that you're thinking of just tackling for any of the blogs?
Well, I got my one coming up very soon, probably tomorrow. We'll see.
Okay.
And there's other ones I'm thinking of, but I'll have to make sure that it's not on the site beforehand.
Uh-huh. Okay, very cool. Very cool. Yeah. Other than that, thank you all for joining me in this. This was a very special, and this is definitely the first celeb we did where we felt comfortable just tackling 50 key roles plus some honorable mentions.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks for having us.
Anytime.
Thank you.
Let's keep talking about the people that inspire us. All right.
Exactly.
Anytime. Stay safe, guys.
Yep.
We'll return after these messages.
Hey, feeling down? Feeling low? Not enough podcasts about movies in your life? Why not try
They must be destroyed on sight.
the new Podcast Cure-All? Sure to get you right with the world and on a path to better living. We have exploitation, we have Italian horror, we have zombies, we have slashers, we have crime films, we have spaghetti westerns, we even have sci-fi and sex comedies. So take a dose of
They must be destroyed on sight.
as needed, and let the hosts, Lee Russell, Daniel Harper, Paul Romali, and the odd guest host cure what ails you.
Warning, may cause atrophy, African consumption, black fever, bone shave, chin cough, colic, cramp colic, dropsy of the brain, elephantitis, grocer's itch, jaundice, mania, miasma, mortification, palsy, Pott's disease, rheumatism, scurvy, St. Anthony's fire, summer complaint, and worm fit in some people. Consult a physician before listening.
Hey, I heard you like movies. I heard you like to hustle.
I heard you like podcasts.
Well, guess what?
There's a podcast for you out there called The Home Video Hustle.
Damn right.
Every Friday, we talk about whatever movie PJ picks out the bag. What does that mean? Every Wednesday on our YouTube page, I put a bunch of movies in a bag, and PJ picks one out at random. And then we just watch it. We talk about it for maybe like an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours, whatever we feel like doing, wherever the conversation leads us.
But do we actually talk about the movie?
Most of the time. Tangents galore.
Yes.
So believe me, we may be a movie podcast, but it's not always about movies. We might talk about video games,
music.
Yeah, that's the big one, music. Sometimes we might get a little bit of politicalness in there.
Yes.
Sometimes we may just, we know what we like to do. We like to tell stories, PJ.
Yeah, yes.
I am the master storyteller of the podcast realm. Undefeated. So if you like to hear about movies, video games, whatever foolishness comes to our mind, the most random stuff you could think of, check out the Home Video Hustle. You can find us on the Stitchers, the Google Play, Apple Podcasts,
What else?
Podbean,
What else?
Podcast Addict,
Goddamn.
all that. Ain't no reason you can't get your hustle on. We everywhere, worldwide, baby.
Hustle, motherfucking hustle.
Hey, we can't cuss in the promo, PJ. We gotta be family friendly. There may be podcasts out there that don't want his hair to say all that good fun stuff.
Well, you.
Don't run the listeners away, PJ.
I'm sorry.
But this is going kind of long.
Yes.
So we'll end this and say, hey, check out the Home Video Hustle every Friday on all the various podcast outlets. Peace.
Peace.
As far back as I can remember, I always wanted to be a gangster. And while Witch didn't make it to the top of the world, he did make the Gangs of Hollywood podcast. So join the gang and enjoy a movie review podcast about movie gangs, gangsters, mobsters, and the mayhem they cause. You can find GOH Podcast on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at GOH Pod at www.gohpod.com, as well as your favorite podcast listening app. And remember, say hello to your little friend for me.
If you take two old punk rockers who are past their prime, put them in front of a movie screen, and give them a podcast, what do you get? Cinema Punks. Cinepunks. It's the mixtape of movies.
Did you ever see a film at such a young age it left you traumatized with cinematic wounds? Necrophilia. It's a dead issue, man. Don't push it. Cinema Psyops is a weekly podcast documenting an ongoing experiment on the mind of an unwilling test subject.
No one should have to watch this movie.
Oh, no one should have to watch this?
No one should have to watch this movie.
Surprisingly, it's not a topic that a lot of people really want to tackle.
I'm shocked, prudes.
I know, really.
Right?
It's the next sexual frontier that no one wants to explore.
I am, in the most sincerest of senses, disappointed in you.
It takes a powerful goddess like Connie, jam her arm down the monster's throat and kill it. Oh, I'm still tripping out over that. Even as a kid, I was like, I gotta find a girl like that. Every week, I get a new look of disappointment that I never thought I could get out of it.
Unimaginable. At 12 years old, you should not be watching this movie.
Obviously.
At 13, you should not be. 14, you shouldn't be. I'm not entirely sure even 17-year-olds should be watching this.
Just because you're offended by something doesn't mean that you have the right to demand that it doesn't exist. Watching this film again, I had all of this like little nerd glee with everything that kept
little
popping
history
up.
doll popping up
absolutely.
at you.
So I totally loved this film.
Hey, I know why you couldn't see that. It's because your brain's warped from watching this shit at 12 years old.
Yeah, this is a rough movie. I told you ahead of time when we were getting ready to do it that it was going to be a rough
How could you watch
one.
this shit at 12?
Because physical wounds heal, cinematic ones don't. Listen to Cinema Psyops.
Hey everybody, I'm Corey.
And I'm Zach, and we're the hosts of Podcasting After Dark, a cast dedicated to late-night horror and sci-fi of the 80s and 90s, often found on HBO and Cinemax.
You know, the movies your parents didn't want you watching as a kid. You can find us every other week on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podbean, and Stitcher.
This is what you want.
This is what you get.
It's time, let's check our cue, baby. Pair it with a couple brews, baby. We love good movies. We love the bad ones too. So we watch them all and pass their lessons on to you. Oh yeah. Everything I learned from movies helps to make life a little bit groovy. With the one-last plot holes and gratuitous movies, it's time to get busy with your friend Steve and Izzy at eilfm.podbean.com.
Welcome to Who Was She podcast. I am your host, Tara Jabari. After a decade working in documentaries, marketing, and all things digital media, I found that podcasting is a strong medium to share stories. After years of producing for others, I decided to start my own biographical podcast. Who Was She will focus on the life of a woman throughout Baha'i history. The first season is about Lydia Zamenhof. Lydia's story explores the subjects of the power of language and faith. Her father invented the universal language Esperanto, and she came from a Jewish family and became a Baha'i. She grew up during World War I and was killed during World War II in a concentration camp, despite heroic efforts to save her life. How can one person's life intersect with so many others, connect across borders, and inspire a biography which inspired this podcast? Over the next few weeks, I will share her story with you and the lives that were most affected by her and those who affected her life as well. They include her father, Ludwig Zamenhof, her spiritual mother, American journalist Martha Root, and the Baha'i German soldier Fritz Mako, who worked for the resistance undercover while having to serve the Nazi Party. I want to thank the author Wendy Heller and George Ronald Publishing for their blessing to let me use Heller's biography, Lydia, The Life of Lydia Zamenhof, Daughter of Esperanto, as a main and instrumental resource for this podcast. So please subscribe and learn about this amazing woman who traveled through 3 continents in an effort to bring unity through the power of language. You can also find more information on our Instagram, Facebook, and Pinterest at Who Was She Podcast. Music was composed and performed by Sam Red. I am your host, Tara Jabari. Join us next time as we begin our journey about Lydia Zamenhof.
Hi, everybody. It's Mac Jackson. I wanted to invite you to a new site called the Forever Adventure Network. This website has everything: pictures, videos, blogs. There's original music by Harmony Constant, 2 podcasts. One is the MacGyver podcast, where we celebrate Richard Dean Anderson, his iconic roles, and how it's influenced our lives. There's episode discussions, interviews, and life conversations. The second podcast is the Never Gets Old podcast, where we celebrate all the best things that we love in life, from TV, movies, music, and comics. The site is also the home for the MacGyver SG-1 audio series, an ongoing adventure series that continues the adventures of MacGyver and SG-1. There are also multiple stores to choose from for all of your pop culture and adventure needs. Come on by and check us out today. And thanks for joining the adventure.
Are you sick of the same old stale podcasts? Well, then join Vanessa and Darren as they dissect movies of all kinds. the two lifelong cinema lovers bring their favorites, curiosities, and first-time watches to the operating table and inject them with a healthy dose of snark. Then there's the waiting room, where they examine books and short stories. So just look for them on Apple Podcasts and where fine podcasts are available. They're part of the Legion Podcast Network. Follow them on Twitter at VDClinicPod. Join them on Facebook at facebook.com/groups/VDClinicPod. Or email them at vdclinicpod@gmail.com. They're ready to cure what ails you. And still, they just might be a little contagious.
We now continue with our program.
Follow us on the web on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. The podcast is available on Podbean, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Anchor, Apple, and anywhere else podcasts are available. Feel free to review our show and leave comments on any of those sites. Thanks a million for listening.
It's a jacked up